Hello my friends, let's start this video from the good news coming from the front lines. For us, it's more interesting what is happening in Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia direction. Before Ukrainian army was successful in this part in advancing towards even Hulai Pole and in Dnipropetrovsk direction as well, the fight is ongoing in Novogorivka as well as in Novomykolaiivka, but Russians try to send their reinforcements today. They try to regain the initiative in this northern sector, in both of those villages, and also in Hulai Pole, which is located more to the southwest. So we have the geolocation of the fights happening in Novomykolaiivka, Novogorivka, Novoivanivka, and Russians propelled forward, but they failed. All of the Russian forces were spotted and targeted by Ukrainian drones. This attack was a total failure for them, and we have again drone images, confirmation and geolocation. So because the Russian attacks were cancelled, Russia lost 1,710 soldiers per day, wounded together with KA. And it is a record number for the Russian losses per day this year, 2026. But something tells me that it will be beaten, because Russia plans more attack operations then the weather becomes more warm. And strike reports about it, this figure is official, 1,710 soldiers. It was confirmed by Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and they have this number because they analyzed drone videos. To obtain the special military points which could be used to purchase some of the drones, our soldiers have to send the confirmation. So this number is, I would say, more or less real. Plus, Andrew Perpetua, one more OSINT, later on will publish his own figures. He also analyzes all of those videos from the front lines, but he only counts KA soldiers, not the wounded personnel. So a failed Russian offensive attempt happened on March 17th. Ukraine used FPV and bomber drones. They played a key role in repelling Russian attack, causing so many losses for Russians. Awesome job from Ukraine. Ukraine definitely expanded the drone operation this year. There are multiple of the drones. Ukraine also increased the range of the kill zone. That's why Ukraine still keeps an initiative despite Russian attempts to regain the lost territories. My friends, just a quick reminder for you, please press like to this video while you are watching me. It helps a lot to propel video in algorithms. What also helps are your subscriptions. So if you haven't been subscribed for the channel, please subscribe, it's for free. And if you have the opportunity to support me financially, you may do it on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description right below, or you may join membership of the YouTube channel by pressing button join. Obviously, if you can and you are willing to do it. Thank you so much. You are awesome. Let's continue with the video. And here we have some of the videos from the front lines. Some of them are from the same Hulai Pole and Zaporizhzhia direction. Russians are attempting their assaults using motorbikes and sometimes even armored vehicles. I'm gonna show you some of the screenshots. For example, this motorbike was kaputted. We have the video from the thermal camera and actual one. And here is one more motorbike that was hit on the way. Well, in some of the cases, Russians are just walking, but I see that they use some of the better gear this time. The equipment, I would say, is definitely better compared to what I saw before. And those chmobiks, they're not ordinary chmobiks sometimes. Yes, Russia has two of the armies, capable and not capable. And if they send capable forces to those mid-wave attacks to put some of the Russian flags somewhere, it means that they're definitely in desperate. Yeah, Russia lost one of the BMPs. It was hit, one more. And the same stuff goes for motorbikes. Lots of the motorbikes are being used recently because weather is getting better. But still Russians are glued to the roads, or at least the field roads. They cannot go across the fields as during the summer times. The soil is still very soft there. Well, they might proceed with some of the BMPs, tanks, MTLBs, with those caterpillars, but with motorcycles, all-terrain vehicles, not for now. We also have some of the videos from 93rd Brigade of Ukraine, Holodny Yar, of how they hunt Russian forces on the way. That's what I am telling you. This Russian turned from the main road to the field, and just the ground is very, very soft for this period of the year, even for off-road enduro motorcycle, which is China-made. Some of the Russians are trying to hide in the trenches, but it doesn't really help. They are good prey for Ukrainian drone operators. Osin Pryfa also says about the Russian attack attempt towards Dobropilya direction, but again, all of the attempts fail. What he says that Dobropilya direction the situation continues to be stable, Russian casualties remain very high, while moving in groups of 2-4, so small infiltration attack attempts. No armor is observed. Indeed, an increase in Russian infantry quality is observed. That's what I was telling you, yeah? The Russians have more gear at least, and maybe they're sending trained soldiers, but it is not changing the situation for Russia in general. Their movements are more controlled and planned than before, but they're still unable to reach Ukrainian positions before getting struck and destroyed by FPVs. So for now, this is not worrying. The territory is open, and this, together with lots of the drones, gives the Ukrainians a good kill zone. And just for us to recall, Russians went to Zoloty Kolodets and also partially to Dobropilya. This is the northern part from Pokrovsk direction. But later on, Ukraine cancelled this Russian offensive operation with capable forces, including the 1st Azov Corps. And even Russian military bloggers continue to complain about their difficult situation, for example, in the Dobropilya direction. At the present moment, an offensive by the center group of the forces in Dobropilya does not seem feasible from an operational point of view. The main priority for them remains Slaviansk-Kramatorsk direction, where the outcome of the summer offensive will be decided. To break through to Dobropilya, the command would have to reinforce the center group, which is already limited in its scope of action due to a shortage of personnel and distributed logistics. 51st Army needs to restore combat capability, 2nd Army as well. Extremely limited, heavy losses require measures to restore combat capability. Yeah, so the situation is really terrible for Russians, and they continue to yell about it openly to the void, because Putin is not hearing them as well as the Russian military command. They have a single order for Russian army to go and take the ground. And how do local commanders achieve that goal? The higher command simply doesn't care. Alright, Russians are trying to reinstate their internet connection. They mount Wi-Fi bridges on high trees. For example, those two Russians went on top of the tree in this installation attempt, and they were filmed by Ukrainian wedding photographers, probably, yeah? Maybe there is the wedding happening, and those guys will not see their photos. They were too busy even to spot the drone coming, and they turned their heads at the very last moment. Well, this Russian soldier also performed the same mission on the other tree. He was alone, lonely guy, but the destination is the same for him. Ukraine is mostly using thermal cameras even during the daytime to spot Russian soldiers' infantry activity. We have also a message from Ukrainian drone army commander Magyar. He says that definitely Russia started the attack yesterday. Well, during the night between 17th and 18th of March, Russians tried to offense not just in Gulaipole and Zaporizhzhia, but also in Dobropilya and Pokrovsk. Magyar says that Russians attack on motorcycles, sometimes even armored vehicles, and just moving on their legs, right? So multiple of the axes, multiple of the vectors, but resulted in over 800 flatlined, completely KA Russian soldiers. The rest were wounded from 1,710. And indeed, from what we saw on the map, Russians moved towards Kalinivske, but Ukraine went with a counteroffensive, mostly using drones, so Kalinivske is under Ukrainian control right now. And Novomykolaivka plus Novogrigorivka, I think for now, those villages are in a gray zone. Because after Russians went forward, even though they've been cancelled, but there is no presence now of Ukrainian infantry forces in those two villages. At least we don't have the latest confirmation about it. And here we see a Russian military map. They confirm that the situation for their forces is not good in Zaporizhzhia and the Dnipropetrovsk direction. They confirm that the Ukrainian army went on counteroffensive towards Novogrigorivka. Ternova is being also taken by Ukraine, and there is the huge risk for the Russian armed forces that potentially might be trapped in all of this area. Well, according to Ukrainian maps, this region is fully in a gray zone, that the Ukrainian army liberated most of those settlements. Well, here we have the zoomed out image, maybe larger scale for you. So Ukraine is attacking from two of the sides, It's the same tactics that Russia used against Ukrainian armed forces before, and still it is effective. Advancing from two of the sides, jamming the enemy army into the pocket. Well, the actual picture is not like that, because Kalinivsky, at least, it was confirmed under Ukrainian control. Well, Russians have different maps, but they cannot fight reality, and sometimes they even publish a real or more or less real information, at least confirming Ukrainian army presence in Novogrigorivka. But still, judging on the recent Russian advancement, I would say that Novogrigorivka is still in the gray zone. Alright, here we have a map showing the expansion of the kill zone. Before it was roughly 50 kilometers, but now it reaches 150 kilometers. And definitely I showed you yesterday one of the videos of how a regular FPV drone strikes one of the Bukhanka vents very close to the Russian border of Rostov Oblast. But what I must say, guys, that definitely the active zone is still roughly 20 kilometers. I mean, the most boiling area. 50 kilometers is where Ukraine uses vampire drones, so-called Baba Yaga. With the drone drops, Ukraine reaches the areas of Russian logistics, supplies, some of the vehicles, gathering of the Russian infantry groups, and so on. Those drones operate with the help of the Starlink, and the range is limited with the battery capacity. But sometimes those drones may fly further away, and also Ukraine operates with FP1 and FP2 drones. They may easily reach 150 kilometers. So yes, the range is now 150, but the fight is happening like intense, very close to the front lines still. 20 kilometers for the standard FPV drones, and just occasionally for some specific missions they may fly further away, especially if you use mother drone, airplane type, to launch FPV drones from those, or then Ukraine operates a long-range strike drones. So 150, yes, but the intensity here is occasional to strike Russian logistics, Russian command centers, ammunition depots, warehouses, whatever. But still, it disturbs the Russian military attack straight on the front lines. For example, this Ukrainian fiber optic drone spotted Russian Ural vehicle, which is armored one used for the personnel carrying further away from the front lines in Kherson region. Sorry, it's actually KAMAZ vehicle, kind of strange because it has this hood in the front. Well, anyways, it seems like Russians are trying to make MRAP vehicles from their trucks. It is something new. So it was hit once, and then the second strike was there. The door is open, so maybe it was opened by the first kaboom, or maybe Russians left the vehicle. With the second drone strike, Ukraine was successful. And then the range extends. Ukraine uses other types of the drones like FP1 and FP2. Well, still there are FPV drones, because it's the first point of view. You control those drones with controller. The same stuff as for those quad drones, but this flies like an airplane, covering lots of the distance. Plus, those drones are also equipped with the Starlink. Ukraine uses those absolutely massively on Russian dugouts and also hitting Russian drone operators. We have numerous of those videos published in internet. Every day there are more and more. I have never seen this scale of the Ukrainian long and middle range drone strikes. And here we go with primary drone unit. They conduct long-range operations, hitting Russian military bases and Russian infrastructure in Crimea and on the rest occupied territories of Ukraine, sometimes flying towards Russia itself. As usual, some of the antennas were hit, but what is interesting about this kind of the video, a new compilation, that also a Russian Coast Guard boat was chased by FP2 or FP1 drone, and it was hit as well. So inside it was a Russian crew. It seems like the first drone missed the target, but there was another one. The second strike was successful. Both of those Russian sailors who were sitting and looking backwards, they understood their destiny. Well, this boat is actually kind of fast, but drone flies faster. And this is some sort of the radar dome that was damaged, and the other one looks like. Primary is a very, very effective drone unit. I just read that it was a GLONASS system in this dome. Awesome. This is the analog of the American GPS, but it's called GLONASS. So with those Ukrainian drone strikes, we see that Russians have a tremendous problem with their air defense. You might remember this Ukrainian drone video of the Kremlin L facility in Bryansk city, where it was hit multiple of the times by Storm Shadow or Scalp cruise missiles. This strike was definitely a successful one. Kremlin L is completely gone. And you know, first of all, I thought that the Ukrainian drone was flying further away and this image was taken with a huge zoom. But after a brief analysis, the strike was conducted during the evening time, and here the sun goes from this side, and geographically it was also confirmed by analysis that drone was filming somewhere to the south. It means that drone went all across the Bryansk city, filming the stuff from the northern direction, further away from Ukrainian border. Russians lost this very important facility. There was no proper air defense, even though, this is crucial, Kremlin L. It is used to produce electronic components for the Russian air defense systems and for the Russian drones. Nevertheless, there was no protection. It was the second most important electronic facility for the Russian army in general in Russia, and we saw already multiple of the videos of how Russians are losing their air defense, and to reinstate, to produce the same number of the air defense systems which they lose is not possible for Russia. It wasn't possible then Kremlin L was alive. Now it's absolutely not possible, so Ukrainian drones will be even more effective, targeting facilities on occupied territories and also on territory of Russia. For Putin, the most important thing is to protect Moscow because he lives there. And potentially, I'm not saying that it will happen very soon, but Ukraine may reach some of the air superiority in some of the hotspots on the front line. So Ukraine might use F-16s or MiG-29s more effectively, dropping aviation gliding bombs, because Russia, as we understand, is in lack of the air defense and radars to cover everything. Yes, the total air superiority is hard to achieve for Ukraine, and Ukraine will not have those advanced airplanes like F-35. It is understandable. With F-35, it could be way easier for Ukraine to target everything on the front lines and even on the Russian territory. Those planes equipped with the long-range radar systems and long-range weapons are just outstanding, and they're beating Russians everything. But Ukraine has to search for an alternate, and the drones is that alternative variant for Ukraine to flatline Russian air defense. We even see how Ukrainian FP5 Flamingo missile is way more effective right now than it used to be. The precision is higher, but also it's not being shut down by the Russian air defense that much as before. It means that Russia sucks with the air defense. Once again, the message is here and it is visible on the video. Alright, you don't know this guy. His name is Ilya Remeslo. He is a Russian propagandist and also provocator, let's say, and he was accusing Navalny. Because of his action, Navalny was persecuted. Ilya Remeslo is also a lawyer who tried to dig something on Navalny, who was always supporting the Russian regime. He is also some sort of the Russian blogger, influencer, who always say terrible stuff against Ukraine and those people who support Ukraine and those people who disrespect Putin and Putin's regime and all of this Z operation. But today, he came out with something really outstanding. He went against Putin, so even The Guardian writes about it, that Remeslo sends Telegram post titled 5 Reasons Why I Stopped Supporting Vladimir Putin. And he also recorded this small circle video saying that his channel was not hacked, and those are definitely his thoughts and attitude towards a Russian regime and Putin. Well, I'm gonna read you what his post is about. It is on Russian. I'm gonna translate to you and tell in general his attitude, but what I want to say that this guy is a walking dead man. He is like this Russian who was sent to the midwave attack, because saying that stuff in Russia, and he's in Russia, it is crazy. Probably he just wants to get flatline or go to the jail. So, 5 reasons why I don't support Putin any longer. First one, the war in Ukraine that was started as the police operation, but now we have tremendous casualties, 1 up to 2 million, he stated. In 2014, I supported the annexation of Crimea simply because there were no casualties. It was bloodless, and Putin, as we thought, was a collector of the Russian lands. Well, still he is an imperialist. He wants this special operation to continue just without losses, you know? How is it possible? But now he writes, we came to this madness on the front lines, midwave attacks, and Russian military gets contract soldiers telling lies to the Russian man. Every sort of the participant of SMO may tell you about it. This war brings nothing but losses for us. It may continue for 5 up to 10 years. Are you ready for that? He asks his viewers. Now the war continues just because of Putin and his complexes. We, average citizens, we have nothing about it. We are not gaining profit about it, he says. We have just losses. So crazy, yeah? But it's getting crazier. Reason number 2 why he doesn't support Putin. Well, here he's more brief. A huge harm for the Russian economy and Russians. So basically less money. And Russians live poorer than they were before the special military operation and in general with Putin, right? Reason number 3, limiting internet and media. Well, Putin was doing it for decades already. He is in power for 26 years. And the reason number 4 is connected to this term. Simply, Putin is very long in power. Reason number 5, Putin doesn't respect his electorate, his people, and he doesn't want to hurt Russians. Conclusion, Vladimir Putin is not a legitimate president of Russia. He should resign and should be prosecuted as a war criminal. Glory to freedom, God damn. That's his words, it's not mine. So the guy just blown up the bomb in this Z community, and Russian Z military channels, they cannot oppose to his rhetorics because those are facts. How can you argue with that? So later on he recorded one more video saying the reason number 6. He mentioned he forgot to say about it, that Putin likes luxury stuff. He likes to live like a tsar. He builds his own castles. He lives very, very luxury life. He's enriching historical and not the Russian people. So basically what Russian real opposition says, Putin does, and this guy who was working for the Russian propaganda, who was a nuclear, nuclear MAGA, like Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, and then he exited MAGA movement and started to accuse Donald Trump and MAGA. Well, this is kind of similar, but this guy is a dead man. Tulsi Gabbard is quite fine in the United States of America, but this Russian, who is the Russian propagandist, he is not safe in Russia, right? So I'm quite surprised. Someone hacked his brain, it looks like, and yeah, that's the current situation. And it's not just him out there saying out loud of what is happening. Well, maybe others do not use the term of war criminal, and they're not accusing Putin directly. They're saying just about this situation that they have on the front lines in the Russian economy. There is no Z military blogger who would say that the situation in Russia is okay. Everyone is saying that it is damn bad with economy, with army, with absolutely everything. Just Putin is winning, but Putin lives in his own universe, in his own bubble, but somehow Putin is successful in, for example, brainwashing Donald Trump, that he is winning. During his last conversation with Trump, he said that Russia gains more ground on the front lines, but de facto, Russia is losing the ground. They're moving slowly in some of the other directions, like, for example, in Konstantinivka, advancing in the gray zone. But Ukraine now gains more of the territories, liberating numerous of the settlements in Zaporizhzhia, Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. But Donald Trump doesn't believe Ukraine. He believes to Putin. And this guy, well, yeah, as I say to you, he will be windowed. It's 100% Russian regime will not allow it to happen. After Prigozhin's failed military coup, they cancel everyone who says something against Putin, especially calling Putin a war criminal who should be prosecuted. It's no-go, so the destiny is understandable. But again, that guy is not a supporter of Ukraine. He is still a Russian imperialist, and I have no pity about him. And you know, guys, in general, I see some of the protest potential in Russia. It will not happen this year or maybe the next one, but I see more people in desperate and more people are not okay with Putin's regime. Still, I think majority supports Putin, but let's say more and more people understand, opening their fridge, that something is not going according to plan after all. Or then they open their windows, seeing those refineries burning or some of the Russian ammunition depots. Yes, SMO is in Ukraine, but somehow Russians start to feel it pretty much hard. Yeah, this video is already kind of long, so probably I'm gonna film about Iran tomorrow. I promised yesterday, but guys, I don't have lots of the time to speak about that topic. However, I should put my attention on what is happening in the Middle East because it influences everything on our planet right now. My friends, please support me if you can on Patreon. The link for my Patreon is in the video description right below, or you may do it on membership of the channel by pressing button join over here. Obviously, if you can. If you can't, you may just press like to this video and subscribe for the channel to boost this content in algorithms. Thank you so much. You're awesome. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.